I'm John DeSando.
Classics, let's go to the movies and share some popcorn, soda pop with our friends. Turn off our cell phones and get away. Night or day, it's John DeSando on the radio. We'll watch the credits from up high and low. Cinema Classics on air.
Cinema Classics is produced by John DeSando. It airs Thursdays at 8:01 p.m. on WCBE 90.5. Listen to shows and read reviews online at WCBE.org.
I'm John DeSando.
And I'm Audrey Harkonen.
And this is Cinema Classics.
And we're off to see The Wizard.
We are.
Oh my gosh.
We're off to see an actual classic. Now we stretch it in this show, largely because we have such a generous manager who will allow us to go wherever we want. And sometimes we say, how do you fit that into Cinema Classics? Well, it's usually the connection to the past that will satisfy it. But this one, look,
the word alone, classics.
The Drexel Theater just recently did The Wizard of Oz.
Yes.
Lego was coming out with The Wizard. You study stuff like this at the library.
Well, yes, it's there all the time.
So The Wizard of Oz really defines classic. So we need to look at it and all of its facets. And the reason that it has so many facets is that it is a classic. And classics can withstand any kind of battering.
Yes.
Even from a top-rated podcast. And it's an award-winning show.
Right.
Okay, so Audrey, here, let me throw out this softball, which is not really. What makes this a classic?
I think, first of all, the timing obviously has a great deal to do with the just the endearing love of this film. But starting with the fact that it wasn't the original, but it was one of the first Technicolor films that MGM produced, a really big film.
Yeah.
And it starts to introduce this over-the-top, fantastical, and it really is a distraction, I think, from the war is ramping
Sure.
up, and we're still in a Depression era, and so we've got total fantasy going on, and the storyline in the fantasy just amuses us and continues throughout our lives.
You're so right. This had the advantage of coming out in 1939, and we'll talk a little bit later in the podcast probably about the other films that came out in 1939. Strange, that world. I think you're right. The Depression had a lot to do with it.
I think so.
And for me, in classic, people say, "What do you mean by classic?" And one of the initial thoughts is that it endures.
Oh, absolutely.
However, next week we're going to talk at Cinema Classics about La La Land, which I consider to be a modern classic of of a musical.
Yes.
And some might question, and I don't blame them. They challenge me. What do you mean? You got to wait. But you had to wait for Citizen Kane.
Yes.
It didn't come right away as a classic, but within 10 or 15 years.
Yes.
So it's a very malleable little term,
Right.
in the classics. But I think this one just feels right. And before we get into some of the good stuff that you've brought, and some I think that I've brought, what is it that appeals? What is so appealing about this movie? It's kind of silly.
It's silly, but it's a story, I think, that everybody can relate to in a way. And that's, you're disenchanted with where you are, who you are, and what's going on with your life. Then you get tossed into something that's absolutely unknown, but phenomenal and colorful and wild and crazy, and you long to go back home. And you're just like, oh, okay, I'm done, and I'm ready to go back to my life. And it's the recognition of, making your life is what you make it.
And it reminds me, as I've been thinking about it, I thought about us and our buddies, Wayne and Keith and Lula and Robin. And we've been to Oz.
We have.
Yes, and this is how I stretch things. The Emerald City for me is up in northern Ohio, up in the Amish country.
Oh, yes.
And Oz is his Mandrakin's Magic show.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
In just very, very quickly, if I want to, as you're talking about it, kind of let myself go and be happy without thinking of anything else. I used to ride my motorcycle up there.
Yes.
So this is a place for me to go. And then I got my buddies like you to go with me up
Yes.
there, having found, thanks to Keith and Lula, the Catalpa Trading Company.
Yes.
Who the heck knows? It's right in the middle of Berlin, Ohio.
Yeah.
And there's all kinds of kits all over. There's little board games and magic kits and so on. But in this basement is an authentic 19th century
Magical theater.
Magical theater, overseen by Oz, who was really Raymond Mandrakin.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
And to me, Libby, the
Yes.
marketing person, and his daughter is really the Glinda.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
makes it all happen.
Yes.
Makes it all come true. Yeah, makes it all come true.
And Taylor, who plays Mysterio and now will be playing Houdini,
Yes,
is the straw man.
okay.
He's the man with the brains.
He's,
And then you can go down, you can
Oh,
right
the
down
rabbit
to
hole,
Libby's kids, who might be munchkins or whatever.
Yeah.
You can just, but anyway, I guess what I'm saying is that we've been to our own Oz
Mhm.
without even thinking it, that escape into romance. And,
Yes.
and once you get there, if you've been there a couple days, you're ready to come back.
right, you come home, it's a reality, and you're okay.
What's
You're
up?
energized.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. And what's also real in this movie? Anything that strikes you that you say, yeah, that's real.
The relationship the relationship she develops, which is really interestingly fleshed out in the book, actually, but we'll get into that
Okay,
later.
all right.
These relationships and these partnerships, as well as these truly affectionate relationships that she develops with the total strangers, and the dependency on each other for their survival, and the appreciation for each other. I think that's also an enduring quality, but it's something that you don't think about until I did the comparison with the book, which really focuses on that.
Yeah, and each one of those characters, if we think about the four major characters,
Yes,
each one has a particular strength.
right,
And even if you think of the lion with his courage,
yes.
and the Tin Man, what's his strength? He needs
The Tin Man needs the heart,
the heart, right?
heart.
And
Scarecrow needs the brain.
Scarecrow needs the brain.
Yeah.
And Dorothy's kind of just the leader of the pack in a sense. That she picks these people up along the way.
Needs to go home. That's what
And
she needs.
she needs to go home.
Yeah.
Just the way we often say, well, we need to go to Europe.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
we need to go up to Berlin. You
Yeah.
know, we just say we need to do that because we have a feeling in our hearts, a romantic feeling in our hearts of a different place to do something for us. And we don't necessarily have to be depressed. It's just we want something different
Right.
than the life we have.
There's an energy involved here.
There
There's
is.
an energy.
There is. For me, the reality of this, and I'm always amazed as I saw it again. First of all, it held up so well when I saw it last week.
Yeah.
I can't believe what a beautifully made movie that is.
Beautifully made.
Structurally, it's perfect. I mean,
Yeah.
it has 3 acts or whatever, however you want to do it, but one flows into the other.
Yeah.
But one of the things that really strikes me as real is, of course, the Wicked Witch.
It does.
Yeah, and her little munchkins, her little flying apes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which, again, there's a spin in the book that was not portrayed in
Oh, really?
the book. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
that's interesting.
Yeah,
Oh.
they are not necessarily her minions. They are obliged to her for so many wishes, and once they run out, they are free. And then they turn into helpers
Ah,
to our heroes
Yeah.
in crossing dangerous countries and things. They fly them over. And that twist is interesting.
that's good.
Yeah, it makes them look like their allegiance is to the Wicked Witch, but it's not really.
Well, you're so right, in the
Yeah.
movie emphasized that at the end.
Yeah,
When they turn from her, the minute she's gone,
Yep.
They are free.
Yes.
They're liberated.
And that's because there is a spell sort of thing they have to follow, and she's had her third wish with them, or her third command, and now they're free.
And if you look back in the film, and you can see the troubles that Dorothy has with the witch.
Yes.
Who is, I forget what her name is in the early part of the film, and
She's
it's anyway played by Margaret. I forget her last name. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. Anyway, she's a perfect witch, and she's going to take the dog away from her.
Yes.
You know, he's starting already to pull with the heartstrings. Ours is the little dog peeks through the basket.
Yes.
And gets away. But that to me is real. That is, no matter how protected Dorothy is on the farm, she has challenges that
Yes.
as a soon-to-be woman
Yes.
that she has to deal with, just like any other human being.
Which is another interesting comparison. The film has made her older, more in almost a preteen. In the book, she's clearly a child. She's very,
I'm
very
glad you
young.
said that, because I'm looking at Judy Garland here, and she is developing as a woman.
Yes.
I mean, all of a sudden I said, boy, she could be a teen.
Yeah, she's probably close to her. She may already be in her teens, but the character in the book is very much a child.
But isn't it? And she wears this kind of, what do they call them? The kind of pinafore or whatever. With the straps as well. It's real farm girl stuff.
Yeah. Yes.
And the braids.
Right, which is how the character, the character is in the book, because she's a child.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Audrey, the character I mentioned that I thought that Magican up in Berlin was like Oz.
Yes.
And what is it about Oz? I mean, really, it's right in the title, The Wizard of Oz.
Yes.
What's there? What part of this whole adventure is Oz?
I think the important part is that there is a facade of some majesty and some magic and just a very over-the-top and larger-than-life character, but it really conceals a very small, diminished little man. Again, in the book, it's the same. It's someone who projects something, but they're really not that. And they just get away with it for so long, and then they're finally discovered.
And it's amusing to me, allegorically, of course, it works for Donald Trump.
Yep.
And there are people who say that, and we're neutral on cinema classics, but I do think it's amusing. Your description you just gave me, I said, I think that's Donald Trump. And so that it just reinforces the humanity of this story.
Yeah, then the reality.
Yeah.
Cloaked in and covered by all of this fantastical and imaginative and imaginary stuff.
All right,
Really...
Audrey Harkonen, wouldn't you know, we got going, you almost got away from me. People are going to have to go to the podcast experience on WCBE.org.
You're going to have to.
And double take for cinema classics. Audrey, what do you advise?
Oh, every time you can see this, enjoy every minute of it. Even if you only see a few minutes, just take it in and enjoy it.
I'm John DeSando.
Classics, let's go to the movies and share some popcorn, soda pop with